Warning, this episode contains massive, major spoilers for the game 999, 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. All plot twists, story developments, and reveals will be discussed and may appear at any section without warning. Thus, if you haven't played all of 999, please do not watch any part of this video. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello everyone, welcome back to another installment of our mystery podcast. This is the third installment and I'm super excited to be back. I'm DTM and I'm joined as always by Z's. How are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing well. Recently had a move, so now DTM and I are now on the same time zone in the PST.
Nice.
You just told me West Coast is the best coast before
West Coast is the best
recording.
coast.
So that's been fun, and I'm excited to be back for another installment of the Mystery Podcast. Excited to get into it and talk about 999 and whatnot.
Yes, this episode will be concerning about a specific game. So the previous two games, we sort of had like a broad overview, but now we're getting into the nitty-gritty, I guess. And yeah, what better way to start than 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors? If you haven't tell by the previous two podcasts, I really, really like this game, and I'm sure you do as well.
Oh, of course. I'm super excited to just rant about this game for an hour.
Yeah. So I guess to start at a high level, what are your overall thoughts on 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors? And how did you actually, discover it or something along those lines?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think I admitted on the previous podcast that I started off with Ace Attorney, which was kind of just my entryway into that mystery sort of genre, I guess you could say. And then I sort of branched off to the other games. And one of those just so happened to be Zero Escape. And that was the initial discovering of it. And as for the overall thoughts on it, I really liked the, darker tone, you could say, to Ace Attorney. Because Ace Attorney has its dark moments, but it has a lot more light-hearted moments as well. Mm-hmm. But for 999, it really takes itself very seriously. For most of it, it does have its moments. But I think it was very, from the get-go, it just really absorbs you into the story just immediately. Mm-hmm. The stakes, I think, are just extremely high because the whole point of 999 is it's 9 persons, 9 hours, 9 doors. So you only have 9 hours to complete your mission, which that's already super intense.
Short timeline, yeah.
Yeah, and I think what's really good is having such a small cast of characters allows them to develop throughout this small amount of time very quickly. Mm-hmm. And that really what was one of the strongest things about the game. And yeah, I remember on my first playthrough, especially with the multiple routes and how every single route matters. I had never played a game like that before, right? Because I think let's say we're no strangers to Fire Emblem. Mm-hmm. You got stuff like Three Houses, Fire Emblem Fates that have these endings and these multiple routes, but they don't really, they're kind of standalone routes, right? Yeah. But in something like 999, these routes all matter. And I've never played a game like that before, so yeah. So it was just wow, I've never experienced a game like this before, especially in the mystery genre field.
Yeah, it's I feel like it's one of the things where the branching paths mechanic really factor into the story, which I thought was definitely really, really neat as well. As for me, I think when I was always a fan of Ace Attorney and later Danganronpa. And I don't exactly remember, but I've always heard about 999 and Zero Escape. Maybe watching Ace Attorney Let's Plays and them mentioning it or something like that. I can't exactly remember. But I specifically remember hearing about it and always being interested in it, but never actually doing it. And then one day, and this was after I became a part of the Fire Emblem, I guess, fandom, I heard Speedy Hawk, who is also a big Lucina fan, mentioned that one of the reasons why he really liked Lucina is because at the time, Lucina reminded him of another character from 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors. And that got me really, really intrigued. And so I was like, okay, fine, I'll actually start to play it. And then boom, I became a huge fan. And that's basically my origin story.
That's actually so funny. It's just like, oh, come on, I'll find it. Fine, I'll play Peak.
But yeah, so like, it wasn't like your route of like, oh, it's just the natural evolution of getting into visual novels. It was more of a roundabout way, but I'm glad I eventually did because, yeah, I do agree. I think right now it is my favorite mystery game that I've played. And yeah, like from the mechanics to the atmosphere to the characters. My favorite Mastermind and story personally, really mind-blowing and emotionally compelling. And yeah, like you mentioned, the opening sequence where it just like throws you into the action, like very quickly from the beginning, you are immediately put into a very tense situation.
Right, yeah, because obviously the name of the game is Zero Escape, so it focuses a lot on escape rooms. It's like puzzles. How do you escape these rooms that you're locked inside, and what sort of clues will you get for like the future progressing through the game? And at the start, I don't know if it's the first scene, it's been a minute, but I'm pretty sure you're just in the room and you're inside like what appears to be a ship, and like the main character, Junpei, he wakes up, he gets like 10 seconds to look around, and then boom, the window cracks and water starts pouring into this room. And it's just like, okay, so we just booted up the game and we're about to die.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right. But, and also, even before that, like, just when you open the game, you get this countdown and this eerily, like, view of...
Oh, yes,
what looks like the Titanic. And then once the countdown hits 0, boom, there's the explosion on the bottom screen, which is really good foreshadowing if you ever replay the game, by the way. Just FYI.
Yes.
But yeah, you get the bomb. Junpei wakes up. It's shaking. It eventually stops shaking. He looks around a bit, and then, yeah, the window breaks, and you better get out of there before you drown.
Right. Now, I think that's just great, because a lot of the other murder mystery games, whatever, they don't really start you off in a position like that. I guess Ace Attorney sort of does. I'm not really... I guess Danganronpa sort of does, but it's more like a... Not so much for the main character, I guess. It's just like you're immediately in danger within like the first 5 minutes of the game.
Yes.
And you're just expected to perform.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it just instantly gives you that like, oh my gosh, I gotta do something.
Right. Like in Danganronpa, it takes a while until there's like Monokuma shows up and there's like an actual threat of danger, as opposed to just like, we're in an unknown place. What's going on? Ace Attorney is interesting because obviously you're a lawyer, so theoretically you're never in danger, but obviously your client is. And due to the way like the tutorial cases work, like your client is immediately in danger. But I mean, when it comes to tutorial cases, they're generally not the most, I guess, tension-filled thing, I guess.
Right, because a 3-year-old could solve the cases.
Right, you're immediately shown the murderer at the beginning, except for I think in 3, but in 3 it's pretty easy to figure out anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I do really like how 999 like immediately provides that threat and tension. Like, things are serious now, and it's very effective, especially with like the music in the background where it's just like, I guess sirens or something. Like that particular music at that moment like really fits the mood.
Oh yeah, the music is phenomenal. They always seem to know what track to play at what time, which I mean I guess is the case for any piece of media, but it works just amazingly well in 999 as well.
Yeah. And we forgot to mention the door, the 5 door in like a blood, I guess, spell ink or something. Like, what's up with that? Like, you like immediately start to question, and again, makes that, I guess, darker tone that you mentioned like really start to present itself.
Right, yeah. And then I guess what I also just really liked about the opening sequence is just how it immediately just sets the tone for what's going to happen, just because of like the urgent danger. You're all alone. You're on a ship, which is already just like okay, so the entire story is taking place in this one thing.
Right.
And I give like the setting, I guess, just a huge props, because the limitations of like it's very easy to, I guess, to grasp and understand. It's like, okay, we're on a ship, we need to get out before it sinks.
Right. It's like the setting naturally provides a very quick uptake on the situation that you immediately know, like, this is a bad spot that you want to be away from. And yeah. So yeah, after you escape, right, like you meet the characters, they all have their moments, and then the ninth man starts to act. I count this as part of the opening sequence, even though it like happens 40 minutes after a bunch of dialogue.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. And like the ninth man explodes basically, and I say this in a joking manner, but I actually do think it's really effective in, again, enhancing that life and death situation, like for a multiple of reasons. For one, it highlights that not everyone will be cooperative. There are some people that are more wild cards. You saw that when like the ninth man takes Clover hostage for a bit, and it immediately brings into question, like, the ninth man says like he was lied to. Who? Like, immediately there's a sense that there's something deeper going on. And then obviously the death of the ninth man, you know, makes this a matter of life and death. It makes things a lot more real, which again helps in heightening the stakes of the situation.
Right, yeah. I think he was a great example, because I guess like you could argue that, oh, now there's only 8 characters because he kind of just died within like the first hour, but
right.
He provided a really great example, and his death means something till the end of the game. Like, there's more to the ninth man than just, okay, he was just the ninth guy.
Right.
Like, there's a lot more to it, even though he does die like in the first hour.
Yeah.
The effects of his death are felt throughout like the entire rest of the story, and his death did actually mean something once you find out like the secrets and everybody's future identities down the line.
Exactly.
But just initially, it was that first moment of just like, okay, one of us is already dead. There's 8 of us left. What happens next?
Right. Yeah. Well, there's only 8 of us now. Like, in the future, is there going to only be 7 of us? Like, is this going to be what's happening?
Right.
Yeah. And something that I didn't even think about, but I guess was brought to light to me when Oblivion started playing this. By the way, Oblivion shouldn't be watching this until he finished the game, so I can say this. Is that Oblivion, when he saw that scene, speculated that maybe like the ninth man didn't actually die because it was all done off screen. So maybe there's like something going on there. Obviously,
true. Yes.
Obviously,
yeah,
like
that's like one of the biggest rules of media is like if somebody doesn't die on screen, they're not dead.
Right. I mean, obviously that is not the case. Like the ninth man did actually die, but I guess it is also an interesting like red herring, or starts to, for those that I guess are very speculative, starts to foment the seed that, like, you know, when eventually Snake dies, quote unquote, like maybe Snake didn't actually die off screen, things like that. And so, I mean, it was probably not actually intended to be that way, but I thought it was worth mentioning, I guess.
Right. I think what's so good and why replaying this game is so interesting, because I don't think I've actually replayed it, but I rewatched scenes, and it's like, you get a lot of recontextualization when you read a scene, and I think that's just amazing. Like, there's so many times where it's just like, hey, wait a minute, I know about this that happens way later in the game. That's an interesting point to say.
Right.
But on your first playthrough, obviously you're not picking up on all those things. What you're thinking about is just like the major stuff. Especially like the ninth man, right? Like if Oblivion's saying like, oh, I wonder if he's like still out there, he's still alive, maybe he's the mastermind, he eliminates himself early, maybe he could be the mastermind, stuff like that. It's like, when you don't have all the when you don't have all the clues, you consider endless possibilities, and that's what I love about games like this. On the first go around, because your brain is just constantly coming up with theories about who could the mastermind be, why are we here, who are all these people, etc.
Right. And yeah, like I think 999 does that really well, especially like initially. Like I had so many wild theories, honestly, like I can't even remember them all, but it was fun. It was really fun. And I think the setup of 999, like the structure of the game itself, like really lends itself well to that, because obviously there are multiple branching paths, but also depending on like which door you go to, you like have a new cast of, I guess, a new group to, I guess, get to know better and try to suss things out while, you know, I guess forming bonds with them. And I think this is something that 999 does really well with the digital root systems on the door. It allows for these different scenarios with different groups of characters, while not making it seem random or arbitrary, but as a result of the character's choices.
Right, yeah. I think the bracelet and the digital root system was set up perfectly just to keep the story progressing. But I don't think we mentioned it yet, but the incentive from the rules of the bracelets, how if a bracelet can be removed if the wearer's heart rate reaches 0, that pretty much gives the incentive for anybody to kill somebody as well, which just allows the seed of doubt for every single character. And I think what's great is, like with mystery games where you're trying to bond with other characters but realize, oh, we maybe shouldn't trust each other because we don't know anything about this person and they could backstab us at any second. And I love that kind of stuff, right? Because you're trying to like attach yourselves to the characters, but you're also like, I don't know. I mean, this guy looks kind of suspicious.
Yeah, like, I mean, we already knew from what the Ninth Man said, well, allegedly, is that he was tricked by someone. Not necessarily in, like, the current cast of characters, might have been, like, from the outside or whatever, but he was tricked. And you have to wonder, are you going to be tricked? Like, are any of these characters going to try to trick you or anything like that? And like you mentioned, there is incentive built into that from the game itself with the bracelets. But not only that, but the end goal, at least, excuse me, at least like from what they initially think from the rules, because they said, the rules say like seek a door that carries a 9, but the rules also say that only 3 to 5 people can enter a door. So that immediately brings the question, are people going to like try to kill each other in order to make sure that they are able to get through? It adds another layer of that like deadly atmosphere.
Right, and I think it's great because nobody really talks about it that much. I think like there's one scene where they bring it up with June and Lotus or something, but they don't really talk about it, which I think is really cool because that's something that's in the back of your mind throughout playing the game, which is like, oh, which 5 of us are going to make it out? Because obviously a minimum of 3 are going to be left behind. Are we going to find some other way out? How many people are even going to make it out in the ending? Like maybe it's a minimum of 3, maybe 5 people die. It's like countless possibilities again.
Yeah. I remember Lotus and Jude, while we were searching for, I think, Snake, like mentioned that, like going through a door before the rest of them. And even though it's not like talked out loud as much, I actually think that's pretty realistic because like in a situation like that, you don't want to like play your cards or publicly reveal your cards or what you're planning, right? You want to keep things on the down low, which makes sense. And so as long as like that atmosphere or like lingering question in the back of their mind happens, like you still get the effect of the questioning of whether or not you can trust these characters.
Right, and I think that's exactly what the characters are thinking too. They're probably thinking like, oh, if only 5 of us are gonna come out, they start thinking up like the digital roots in their head of like, okay, who is like the best cast of people that I want? Who would I want to leave behind? Who do I trust the most to take with me, kind of thing? Or like, should we? I think they said like, oh, we should form an alliance. Like, hey, if something bad happens to me, you're gonna come help. And then it's the vice versa. I think that was just really cool. Because it's like, you know, the characters are thinking about this in the back of their minds as well.
And like the digital root system, again, going back to the structure of the game, it's just really, really cool in general. And I think it's like actually really genius because like with a lot of these games, like death games and Danganronpa and stuff, like you want like to have different groups of people to have like different interactions with each other. But how do you set that up? And I think the digital root system is just a really good way to do this because, for one thing, it's just really cool. You know, having a character assigned to a number makes them a lot more memorable with like an identity, especially with the code names that they choose. It like adds a lot more characters to them. Yeah. And then obviously like it's 999. It fits with the 9 theme. Like we're obsessed with 9s in this game, and that's just like sort of leads into that and that numerical system. And as you mentioned, because of those rules, like there's the speculations with the danger and the mistrust, and us as players can try to use this digital root system to speculate who did certain actions. Like for Snake's murder, like they opened the 3 door. Okay, so what combinations can make that happen? And like whenever Lotus dies, the narration always says that, you know, the bracelet's taken. So who would most benefit from an 8 bracelet and things like that? And while that is really, really cool, it's also misleading because there's also other aspects like the 9th bracelet and things like that a lot of people might miss on the first go around, but becomes really, really obvious once like you know the answer to. And the digital root system, I guess like the main thing I really like about it is that the groupings as you go to each door feel really, really natural and as a result of their choices rather than at random or things outside their control. Like obviously the individual doors and the number they have are outside their control, but it still gives them this really good sense of agency. Like they're in control of their destiny, which I really, really like in these sort of situations.
Yeah, no, oh gosh, especially like when it comes to the big hospital room, there's like a big like debate about the doors and then that one, because there's like 3 different doors to choose from. At some point, one person's gonna have to stay behind, and then like that person staying behind plays into something that happens later into the game to certain reveals, and it's like
you can mention them,
with,
you know,
with
like
future knowledge, everything is just recontextualized.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I guess Ace, yeah, but it's it's just like at the time, because I remember I really liked Ace at the start, because I have a bit of a fondness for like the leader type character. Call me a sucker for Fred from Scooby-Doo, but like, but like you know, Ace was kind of the leader. Right? He was number 1. He took charge in a lot of situations, and I was like, okay, this guy seems like a reliable leader type character, and he's going so far as willing to sacrifice himself for the betterment of the group and say, just come back and get me later, only to find out like he's actually one of the previous masterminds behind the game, and it's just like, dang, this guy sucks. And he knew that he would be fine if they went through the door, and it's just like, it just everything, it just makes it feel more impactful, because it's like you thought of him as a hero at that point because he's willing to stay behind, and then it just makes you like hate him even more when you find out why he really did it, and how he tried to play it off as him being a hero. Yeah, trying to prevent like Snake's body from being discovered, and again, like the doors and the digital root system like really helps facilitate that so well, and like Lotus being like asking people to sacrifice, voting to sacrifice, again has a lot of cool character moments. Some positive, some negative. My particular favorite, honestly, is when Junpei realizes that no matter which door they go through in the hospital room, Jun will be separated from him. And if you choose door 3, he like disregards everything and just like tricks everyone to get into door 3. Like, honestly, that was really, really great. It felt like a different side, I think, at least for that one, because I don't think I chose 3 when I first played it. I forget which one I did first, but I think I did 3 last. And I remember when I first played it, I was like, man, Junpei's kind of a jerk. Because it was a side of him that we hadn't seen before. He kind of just felt like your typical like protagonist, like, hey, let's get things done kind of guy. It's not one to like
route. Yeah.
yeah. And even then, like, that's going through that door is extremely necessary to learn the truth behind everything that's going on. And it's just like, you have to experience that, even if it does kind of feel bad in the moment to trick all of the other people.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. The structure is just so good. I don't know if there's like another structure to like another mystery game that... Okay, I guess Danganronpa's structure I really, really like as a system. Like, the idea that you have to kill someone to escape, I think is really, really good in terms of like a system, while still having like a lot of agency. The concept is just really, really cool. But outside of that, like, I don't know. I guess...
Right, I would agree. I think 999 definitely does have like... I mean, I guess each formula is different in their own way, but I think just the way it was designed was not only cool, just out of like a sheer wow, that's like a cool factor, I guess you could say. It's just like, dang, digital roots and all that. That's really neat. But it just, again, like you said, how it organically forces characters to pair up, and then you get those interactions that like you maybe haven't gone if you went through this door.
Yep.
And every character interacts with each other like in such a, I guess, just organic way. It's just like how they interact with each other is good. You get a lot of different character interactions between everybody, which is like not something you get to see in maybe other games like Danganronpa, because they have like 15 characters, so there's more to balance. And they kill off some of their characters early, but like how many times in Danganronpa, let's say, did you see like character A talk to character J? That's like, you know, it's like there's barely any interaction between some of the characters. But in 999, there's like almost a good example of every character interacting with somebody else.
Yeah.
Aside from the ninth man, because he just kind of dies. But you know, we don't talk about him.
He's the fodder, right? He's the fodder.
He's the fodder. Yeah, he's the. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that organic section is also partly why I don't like the system of Virtue's Last Reward as much, because in Virtue's Last Reward, like, while you still have choices in like which pair or single person you go with like the complementary colors, the actual color assignments are not assigned to you. They're completely random after each round, and it's also completely out of your control whether you're a single or a pair. So like who you are paired with is chosen for you. So there's less of that organic feeling, less of that agency that I think 999 really had. And so yeah.
Right. I think it led to being more flexible in the first game.
Definitely. And that's good because, again, like, it allows for these organic character moments. And 999's characters, honestly, every main character I find very, very effective, and most of them super, super compelling. Like, the characters in 999 are just such a standout.
Right, I would agree. I think when it comes to like the colors and whatnot that you mentioned again is like, I guess it's more noticeable what the video game designers would be like, oh, let's make these characters these colors so that we can have these guys interact. Whereas with like the digital root system, there's only one of each door. Well, there are two number 9 doors, but normally you're supposed to think there's only one of each door. So each door they can plan ahead and lead to like, okay, so in this situation, these characters are going to be grouped up,
right?
And then we're going to want our protagonist to interact with these characters at this time, so we're going to leave this door for later. So it really feels planned out. Just looking at, because when you're first going through it, you don't really think about that kind of stuff. But like, since there's only one door of each, that means there's going to have to be different combinations, which leads to the developers thinking ahead and being like, okay, if the number 2 door is later in the game, that means we can bring in these characters for later, and like keep these characters toward the beginning of the game, which I thought that was just really cool. Yeah,
and as that point you mentioned, like, it doesn't feel like the author wanted you to have these groupings when you first play it. So there's less of this feeling of like, oh, these are the groups because the author says so. It feels more natural from the characters themselves and their decisions. And yeah, that's really amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially how you do have some choice between which ones you want to pick.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, again, like, thank goodness we were able to interact with all these characters, because like all these characters are amazing, honestly. What's your favorite character, actually, out of curiosity?
That's a good question. I mean, I think everybody just, at least upon completing the game, almost everybody would probably say Akane. But I was also really a big fan of Seven as I got to learn more about his character, because he kind of felt like one of the more uninteresting ones at the start, I guess, because he was kind of just like, he just felt like the big guy, the big muscle head kind of guy, like, oh, he's dumb and he uses brute force to solve everything. But like as you learn more about his character, how he had like a really big heart, how he was a cop and wanted to protect all the kids and whatnot, like I just really liked how his character evolved, and how like he was trying to remember things throughout the game since he had amnesia, and just lots of things. I really liked Santa as well, and I remember on my first playthrough really liking Ace, and now I'm just like, dang, I really like that guy, huh? I really like that guy.
Yeah.
How about you?
I mean, after the game, I think I'll agree. I'd say Akane is my favorite character. But I think after that, I'd probably say Santa, because I remember when I first played it, I thought Santa was like, oh, this punk kid, you know, this rebellious teenager type kid,
right,
that is probably going to do something stupid later down the line. But like once you start to get to know Santa, about how he lost his sister, and then the reveal that he, you know, was an accomplice in order to try to save his sister, or secure her own existence, you know, he just became very emotionally compelling. And I think this is something that 999 does really well, is that, you know, all these characters, when you first meet them at like the stairways and stuff, like you have like that initial impression of what they are, but a lot more often than not, like each of those initial impressions gets subverted or is deeper, and as you start to dig into it more, like it's super rewarding to like learn more about these characters, and you know, what makes them find them compelling.
Right. I would agree with you. Like every character, when you learn them, or like just like get to learn about them more, they definitely like feel different by the ending. I would say the only one who doesn't really feel different by the ending, I guess I would say, is Snake. But I think because he was lacking so much in the middle game, it made sense for him to only be like at the start and at the end, because of how much influence I guess he had, because he had a lot of knowledge, a lot of like just backstory, knowing Ace's identity and whatnot, and how he could kind of cheat the system because he had the prosthetic left arm, so he didn't have the his bracelet didn't actually matter, so he kind of cheated the system, which is just dang, okay, dude. Yeah. And it felt like he was just very crucial to the plot. I think he's also like another one of my favorite characters, and part of me wishes he was around in the story a little bit more, but I think it's effective to not have him around as much, just because of the type of character that he is, because it felt like he's a little too OP, I guess you could say, because he has the extra knowledge from the start. Everybody clearly trusts him because of how knowledgeable he is and how honest he is about everything. He was willing to help everybody, and it never seemed like a moment where he didn't have control of the situation, I guess. Even like toward the ending when he's like grabbing onto Ace, forcing him to stay. Like, oh man, he's a great character.
Good. Yeah,
it was. Oh my gosh.
And yeah, like I will say that I guess Snake didn't subvert I guess initial impressions that much, but honestly, like him as a character as it is like already really, really good and really compelling, especially with his care towards his sister. And so yeah, I guess there was less of a need for that to make him an interesting character, which, you know, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. Man, I remember when I was first playing this, I really did not like Lotus at the start. Like, since I took door 4 first, and there was that moment where there was questions of whether she, like, quote-unquote locked the freezer on purpose or anything, and was very nonchalant about, us freezing to death.
Oh yeah, I guess because she was one of the most uncooperative characters from the start,
Right.
so she kind of felt like annoying because she was like, "Oh, I'm not going in that door. You can't make me go through that door." And it's just
right.
Come on, just go through the door. 'Cause, like, we need you to go through the door so the rest of us can go through the door. I get that.
Yeah. I will say, like, at the end, especially after going through doors 3 and 2 to get to the sub-ending, like, I really liked Lotus because, you discover that she is a mom that's very concerned about her kids and was always trying to find answers and finally was able to before the sub-end, which we're not going to talk about yet. But was able to, I guess, find closure in that moment. And yeah, I think each of these characters at some point has a moment where they're very compelling, except for Ace, where he becomes like really hated at the end. But that's fine. That's what a villain's for, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I think like leading up to his Mastermind, or I guess like previous game Mastermind, was amazing because it really lets you put the clues together yourself, especially with like the different endings that you get, because it just brings up those questions like who benefits most from having this bracelet, and you're kind of just like, okay, it's probably this guy. Yeah, it's Ace.
Yeah.
The more you go through the game, you're just like, yeah, it's this guy. Yep. But then it's just like, I guess a reveal is always really tense, especially since Ace did not back down when he got accused. Like, he kept playing innocent for a long time, so you really had to like push him to the edge to be like, yeah. You had to use like his, what is it, prosopagnosia? Is that the word? Prosopagnosia, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget how it was pronounced, but yeah, you had to use that like against him. And it was just like, dang, it feels really tense because like you're about to, that this is the guy, but it's like, what's he gonna act like once he actually like drops the act, right?
Right.
It's so tense, like calling people out, and especially since the main character doing it too, like you're the one doing it.
Yes, like, oh my goodness, that was one of my favorite story beats, by the way. Like Junpei like confronting Ace and little by little like ensnaring him into the trap of revealing that he did it. Basically, he killed a quote unquote snake. It makes like Junpei such a cool and smart character, being able to like trick Ace into revealing himself, and also like just the way it is built up is just really, really good as well. What are your favorite story moments or story beats outside of like any of the bad endings or the true endings? Any favorite moments of yours?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a lot, right? There's a lot. I think when it starts getting into the nitty-gritty of what happened 9 years ago, that was what was really fascinating. Because like at the start, you don't really even consider the fact that there was another game being played or anything. But that you start connecting these two events together, which then eventually leads to how the ending works. So I think, especially like when they were talking about all like the kidnapped children, how Seven started like, all my memories starting to come back, and how I was trying to get these children out of there. And then you start learning about the like pharmaceutical company. It really just slowly unravels, I guess. I guess just like learning more about what happened in the past. Like every single time we got to learn more about something in the past, I was always really excited, because they love to go on rants in 999 about things that like
Hey,
probably
Junpei,
don't really matter.
Did you know?
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny because just like, hey Junpei, did you know about this really, really hyper specific thing that is like 99% pseudoscience, and we're just gonna rant about it to you for like the next 10 minutes? Did you know about that? Did I know about that? Why do I know about this? Like, why do you... It's like,
my
what?
favorite is when you're in the freezer trying to get out, and then June starts saying, hey, did you know about Ice 9? And then about the crystallization of glycerin while we're freezing to death. Like,
oh gosh.
Honestly,
it's just so funny.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense in like the scene, because it's just like, okay, here's a bunch of knowledge, but it's just like, why do these characters know about this? And why do they all know? Like, why are they all like so smart to know about all these very hyper specific things and like in such high detail? It's like, why do you know about this?
Yeah, Seven might have lost his memories, but he for sure knows about EDT and hydrocrystallization.
It's so weird.
Yeah,
it's
honestly,
why do you know so much about how molecules like can freaking have telepathy or whatever? It's just like, but you can't remember like what your day job was. But you can remember that the molecules talk to each other. Okay, bro.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's part of its charm at that point. Like whenever I replay it or watch, I guess, other people play it, like I smile inside, and I always love the reactions. I will say on the ones that relate to the morphogenic field, which there are a bunch of them from like the glycerin and whatnot, like it does help like set the morphogenic field in stone in like the setting.
Right.
And
yeah, I think the field comes up really early too, doesn't like in like the first door, like one of the first doors or something? I don't remember how early it was.
If you take door 4, it's literally the first puzzle room.
Yeah. I just remember I remember just rewatching scenes like, dang, this shows up really early in the game. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. And like all these stories, I guess, or pseudoscientific tangents, like I guess like helps establish this lore about the morphogenic field into something that is like both mystical but also somehow grounded in reality or in the story. It somehow makes it feel more realistic, I guess, in a way, despite it obviously being complete pseudoscience and basically telepathy, right? But they never say it's telepathy. It's all wrapped up in this pseudoscientific stuff about, we're all connected because we all ate, all our cells like recycle, so like whatever we eat, like we become them, and that's how we're all connected, and et cetera, and like, okay, so instead of it's being something like complete BS for a mystery game, it's like, all right, it's more grounded. It's we buy it basically.
Yeah, like you know it's just dumb, but in the world it's just like, dang, that actually kind of makes sense.
Right.
It's believable, and it's not just because the writers wanted like this cool telepathy ability to happen. No, they actually made sure that it made sense in universe.
Right. And obviously, like, not all the pseudoscientific theories like connected. I know like the mummy was frequently mentioned, that originally only appeared as an Easter egg at the end until VLR happened, which, I mean, I guess technically it's still, the mummy itself is still a red herring. But yeah, it does help contribute to the atmosphere, all these pseudoscientific tangents, I guess. And yeah, like helps, like, I guess, reinforce this tone of like, what is going on?
Right. And I guess I had like the same thing with All Ice Alice, like, oh, there's another person on the ship with us, and it's just like it does just add a lot, even if it doesn't mean a lot to the core story. I mean, I think it's interesting that how they play into it in like a future game as well, but I don't know. I think like the tangents that you get while doing the escape rooms, despite the characters really shouldn't be talking about this, is they only have 9 hours to escape. You're just like, why are we ranting about freaking all these molecules and what we eat? It's just like, don't you think we should, I don't know, maybe get out of here?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I will say, one of my favorite story moments was when, I guess, June was ranting about futility, funnily enough, while presumably inhaling all these cheese fumes. But like, when you actually like replay that, and she talks about how instead, not doing automatic writing, but instead being the one that possessed himself in the future to eventually write down, you start to realize, oh wait, this is actually foreshadowing to what Akane is basically doing. That's actually really neat. Yeah. And
it all just recontextualizes itself. Like that kind of writing is just so good. Like it's been a while since I played 999, but I really want to just like replay it and just like see what scenes. I mean, I guess most of them probably did, but like what scenes would I just be like, wow, they really just did that so early. Mm-hmm. That's the coolest part about like replaying these types of games. Yeah. Which I feel like 999 more than a lot of other games has. 'Cause I feel like if I were to go like replay Danganronpa 1, I don't feel like I'd see much foreshadowing. Like there'd probably be a little, but not to the levels of 999.
Right.
No, sir.
Yeah. And this is something I think Zero Escape in general does really well. Like Virtue Slash Reward does it really well. Zero Time Dilemma does it really well. I'm not obviously going to say anything about those two right now. But yeah, like you always learn, like in 999 on the DS version, at the very beginning when you have the flashback to the apartment, like there's in narration, it says like, did I leave that open or something along the lines? And before you have context, you're like, oh, that's just Junpei wondering about him. But when it's referring to I, you're like, and you figure out the end, you're like, oh, I know who I is now. I know what this is leading towards.
Right.
So yeah, there's always those cool like moments that I really, really like that you get when you're replaying the story.
Yeah. No, definitely one of the I guess mystery games that just has the best replayability, even if you know all the all the stuff, all the plot points that are upcoming.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one thing I just want to mention before we move on in regards to that, another moment that's really, really cool. When you enter the door 3 and you, I guess, like pick up the thermometer or something like that, there's this moment with Santa where he like asks you, do you know why thermometers don't go above like 105 degrees or something like that? And I mean, Junpei's obviously super confused, as he always is whenever there's like these tangents. But then Santa was like, because after above like 105 degrees, like there's no going back. You're basically dead, or something along those lines. I can't exactly remember exactly.
That sounds vaguely familiar. I do remember this.
Right. And when you first play it, it's like, okay, you do you, bro. But when you actually like finish the game, you're like, oh, he knows because, oh yeah, the first nonary game. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, like I just wanted to mention that before.
A lot of just like throwaway lines are just like so important, or just like the foreshadowing with just Akane having a fever. It's just like, dang.
Oh yeah.
That is so, because at the time it just like it makes sense for her to have a fever in those moments because it's like from shock. Mm-hmm. But then again, the recontextualization after playing the end of the game, you're like, oh, so that's why.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I like watching Let's Plays of it. Both I can live through these, I guess, YouTubers or streamers' perspectives in like reliving my experiences, but also, wait a minute. That scene actually means this thing. Wow. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been having fun chatting with Oblivion about his experience to the game.
It's been fun, although Oblivion unfortunately has not been playing as of late due to a bunch of other things that have been happening because he's super busy. He's also moving, actually, funnily enough, so he's just been really busy
he did
with
mention that.
Yeah.
That's right, that's fair.
Don't worry, I'll get him back one time.
Yeah, I gotta get him back. I gotta know what he thinks about the ending.
Yes, I do too. I mean, he got the sub ending first, and we'll talk about the bad endings afterwards, but I mean, I guess one of the things he was really shocked about was that I recommended a super dark game to him, because it is pretty dark. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
I don't know. I guess I didn't seem like that type of person. But I really do like the dark tone and the atmosphere of 999 like really, really well. It's one of the best atmospheres and settings of a game, I think. I think the only ones that I think are better, perhaps, are like Paranormal Sight, which I know you haven't played yet, but it has really, really good horror aesthetic, and probably like the first Danganronpa, honestly, with like the abandoned buildings. I think.
Oh yeah, I think for me at least, Danganronpa 1 and 999 are kind of how they have like this similar when it comes to at least the setting. I think they have like just equally like claustrophobic settings. It's just like you're in a school, you're in a boat. It's a completely self-contained to something like that.
Yeah. All the windows are bolted shut with like steel panels and things like that. Yeah. There's always that sense of claustrophobia and danger with these like confined spaces, which I really, really like. it heightens.
Right. I think the lack of a sun or just being able to go outside is great. Something that I think like the other two Danganronpa games lacked, where it kind of lets you go outside for a little bit. It's like, no, I don't want to go outside. I don't want to touch grass. I want to be scared. I want to be locked in a cellar.
Yeah. Yeah, because like the fact, if you see the sun, you see the sun, so like it's a lot more freeing as opposed to like not seeing the sun. Like it's a little thing, but you know, it's a common fact of life, and not being able to see that like just sets how precarious the situation is. And yeah, that's something I actually didn't consider, but now that you mention it, it works really well. Yeah,
I just think thematically, like seeing a sun in a video game or like just being outside, it's just like a sun is a symbol of just like light and good, but like the darkness obviously is like just more suffocating. So like whenever you get to see the sun, at least like in a lot of, because I know like I think like Portal 2 is a good example. When you like beat the game, you go outside or something. Plenty of other games. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's just like you finally see the sun and you're like, oh, we made it, right? The sun, the sunlight, you made it to the sunrise. Whenever the sun rises, that's like where the hope and the freedom is, and it's just like seeing that constantly in Danganronpa 2 is just like, okay, it's always sunny. Even though the setting is like dark still, it doesn't really feel as effective as like, oh, you're literally trapped in a ship or in a school. You're not going to see the sun. There's no plants. It's just metal and darkness and sadness. Yeah. Even though you're on an island, like there's still like, it feels a lot more free than like trapped in a school or where you can't like literally walk outside and stuff. And yeah, like, and like, I guess also from a narrative perspective, it makes sense because, you know, spoiler alert, in case you're somehow in the middle of this spoiler-laden video, you're not actually on a boat. You're actually in Nevada, in the Building Q building. And like, that makes it so like, obviously, you know, it helps with that twist at the end where like you're not actually on the Titanic. You're in a building that looks like the Titanic or the Britannic or Gigantic. Yeah, whatever 3 different versions of the Titanic.
Okay,
were those even real, or were they just? I don't even know. I just kind of trusted the. I was like, yeah, that sounds real. I believe it. Like, so I didn't actually bother to do it.
So obviously the Titanic is real, and the Titanic did have 2 sister ships. The one relevant to us is the Britannic, which is the one that was later converted into a hospital ship. For whatever reason, 999 changed the name to the Gigantic, and I don't know why they did that, but I guess to make it unique or something.
I guess, I'm not sure. I didn't even know because I just like was playing it and I was like, oh really, that's true? I believe you. Right. But I guess like, that they take advantage of the fact that not many people would know. It's just like, because everybody's heard of the Titanic, but like, how many people have heard of the other sister ships? Probably not that many. Yeah.
And I will say, I do think like them being quote unquote set in the Titanic is just on a coolness level, just really, really cool, because like even with all like the bolted doors and everything, like it's a really, really good setting to have this game play out in, especially once you get to like the hospital room and the is it the torture chamber or or like the laboratory. Like just seeing these different aspects of the room makes like progression feel really, really satisfying, and exploring really, really, really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that way going into every door. Honestly, every new place just got more clues and just unraveled more mysteries, and a lot of them were like just really creepy and dark. And it's just like, why are these all like this on this ship? Why is everything so dark and scary?
Yeah, like Science Man, R.I.P. Science Man, you will be missed. I think it was Science Man.
Yeah, all like the dolls or whatever. The dolls are freaky. Like, yeah.
The shark that somehow appears in the torture chamber, like it's all very ominous, and again helps with that tone and atmosphere really well.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah. So one thing we discussed when it comes to 999 is that there are multiple branches of story, and that means there are multiple endings. There are 2 main endings and 3 bad endings. Of the bad endings, I guess what are your thoughts on the bad endings just overall?
Well, they 100% provide shock value because a lot of them come out of just left field, right?
Right.
Where, especially I think like you go into door 3, you automatically get, I think, is it the sub ending?
The sub ending, yeah.
Yeah. So it really just kind of happens, and you're like, oh, everybody's dead now. That's cool. And like you see the submarine, you're like, okay, wait a minute. If we're on a ship, the submarine surely is a chance to escape. So if we can get out the sub, let's remember that for later, even though it doesn't really come back later. It's just like and in the moment you're like, oh, that's our ticket out of here. Let's use the submarine to escape the ship. Mm-hmm. There we go. And then there's knife and axe, and it's just everybody ends up dead, and it's like every single one you end up dead. Like each one is ominous in their own way. I think, in my personal opinion, of the bad endings, I really like the sub ending. That one, I think, because I think that was the first one that I got.
Oh wow!
I'm not sure.
That's a wild one to get first.
Yeah, I think it was either the sub or the axe. I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head, but like I just remember like the first ending. Like when you first get there, it's like, oh, everybody's dead now. Because like especially on your first playthrough, you're not really expecting what to run into next. Right. So you're really not prepared for this kind of thing. And then once you get like the variations of everybody dying, you're like, oh my gosh, why is everybody dying? What am I supposed to do?
Yeah. Like, I really love the sub ending as well. Like, you just come off from very cool lore developments. Like, you got to know Lotus better. You got to know more about what happened in the past on the first Nonary game. Everything's going swimmingly, and then boom, you open the door, and then you see 3 people die, or quote unquote die. We all know Ace was faking it.
Yeah.
And then that brings into question, like, okay, so we have 3 people dead. 7 specifically confirmed Clover as dead, just Clover. But after that, like, Lotus like frantically tries to get the key. So you're like, is it June that killed them? And then you go through the sun door, and then June's dead. It's like, what is going on? And then when you go to the sub, like, you're stabbed, like, is there another person? Like, what? And so I think it really does, not only in terms of shock value, but also does a really good job of like setting up like more mysteries and more speculation, because like you think, okay, is there like another person? Is it the 9th man? Is it Snake? Potentially, if you like went through other endings and connected the dots. Is there like, and how did like June get through the sun door? This detail, I will admit, completely left my mind as soon as I saw June dead. And I haven't seen like anyone pick up on the fact that June somehow got through the sun door with presumably a master key or something similar. But again, like on replay, it's just like all there. And again, also Lotus's bracelet is taken. The narration specifically mentioned that. So like that again plays into like the speculation. It's just, I mean, I really like the sub ending a lot. Like I do think it's a really good first ending, but it's wild that it's just so literally the worst ending of the batch.
The worst ending, but it's just, and it happens so fast. Like it's what, 5 minutes, and like just everybody dies, and like you're playing this game, and like you're not really expecting everybody to just die in 5 minutes. It just hits you like a truck. It's crazy. Yeah.
And like there's a really emotional moment with June as well, especially if you go through door 3 to get to door 2, where it's just like, oh no, the love interest there, she's dying, and it's like it's really, really effective as well. Again, just really, really good foreshadowing. I also really like that. Oh, go ahead.
I think what's good about the submitting, at least especially with Akane as well, is like you'd never, especially when you see that, because at the moment like you see all the people there all dead, you're like, okay, well the only one who killed them could have been her. And like maybe throughout the game you're like experiencing some sort of doubts towards her. And it's just like, well, it's like, okay, she seems like the innocent one, but what if she's written that way just so we think that
Right.
she's innocent. She could actually be like the murderer and turn out to be
The
some crazy
classic.
person. Yeah. So when you go through the door, like you said, you said like you everything completely left your mind except for like when you see her on the ground, you're like, oh my gosh, she's dead too. It couldn't have been her. And then
Right.
like you obviously get the very emotional moment between Junpei and June, and it's just like, dang. Now she becomes like this character. I mean, as if she wasn't already, but she becomes like that character that you're like, okay, we need to keep her alive.
Yeah.
Because it's like you don't want to see her die, right? Like a lot of the other characters, maybe at this point you're like not as attached, but like at least for Akane, you're like, okay, we want to save this character. We do not want to let her die. She has to make it to the ending, right? Or else we're gonna be sad.
Yeah.
So it's like at that point, I feel like it's a really effective way to make the player trust Akane and
Right.
want to save Akane, which does help with the final ending as well.
Yeah, it really does. Like layers upon layers. It's really, really well done. I also really like the axe ending as well. Just from like a
Unsettling. It's unsettling.
yes, that's the word. Unsettling. Like the narration that goes while that's happening, and Clover's demeanor. Junpei starting to lose it, like mentally.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, it's actually it's really, really good writing that
It
makes
is.
the axe ending super impactful and mimetic. Honestly, like Clover will forever be known as the axe girl, and you know what? That's fine by me.
Yeah, no, it's scary. It's scary because like a Clover, I guess. I mean, she's a bit like a hothead, but she also seems very timid, right? So you never really
Yeah.
think it's like, oh, she actually had it in her to kill these people. And it's just
Right.
like, it really is unsettling. And it's just like, why don't you
Yeah.
join me, Junpei? It's like, oh my gosh, like get away from me. You're terrifying me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Such a scary,
And, like,
unsettling ending.
it really helps highlight like the amount of stress these people are going through. Like they are going through it in this game with like, and that's something that is easy to like forget about when you're playing mystery games, right? These characters are going through it, and you get aspects of that here and there very well, but especially during the accent, it's like, okay, things are taking a dark turn. Oh my goodness, it's over.
Right. I think another really fun thing to do, at least on first playthroughs especially, is like, I love imagining what if I was one of the people in these situations. Like I remember like when I first, a lot of like the escape rooms or like the situations that are very tense, or like even at the very start of the game when the water's rushing in that room, like would I be able to have the composure to solve all this mysteries and get out of the room, or would I just have like a panic attack and be like, I'm gonna drown, I don't know what to do, and then I just drown because I'm just panicking the entire time. Like would I be able to get it together, or would I just it makes you ask yourself those kind of questions, and it's the same thing with like all the other characters, because you realize like, oh man, they're in these situations, what are they gonna do, what would I do in this situation? It's so fun to just have a well-written story that makes you come up with these things while you're playing.
Definitely.
And it works effectively, especially when you take your time with the game too, because I know there's a lot of people that just kind of rush through like visual novel games. But I like taking my time. I really do.
Yeah. I think 999 is one of those where like seeing all the endings definitely like enhances the experience really, really well. And like, because you get a lot of context from each of them. Fun fact, did you know that in the knife ending, or just before the reveal that Lotus is killed, there is a music track that only plays during that one scene for like 2 minutes and nowhere else? It's like the scene where June and Junpei like refer to themselves by their nicknames since they're alone at the time. Like that music scene, like literally music track literally plays like nowhere else. Like,
really, I actually didn't know that. Huh.
Fun little trivia to tell your friends. I will admit,
Interesting.
outside of that, I find the knife ending to be the more meh of the endings. Personally,
Yeah.
like it doesn't have the impact that like the other two had, which I guess is fine. Because there is like some like I guess story speculations you can get from that ending as well. But yeah, it's definitely not my favorite ending by any means.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the weaker endings, I would say, because there's less impact with not as many people dead, and it happens fast. It is still shocking, but I think like especially if that I don't remember which one was the first ending. I really think it was a sub ending from my memory. Again, it's been a while,
right?
But I almost think like if the knife ending is your first ending, it's not gonna hit as hard. I feel like sub ending is just like the best first ending for anybody to get.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah, definitely agree with that there. I was really fearful that Oblivion would get the safe ending first because he was doing all the doors associated with the safe ending, and I was like, oh no. But thankfully he chose door 2. Rip door 3, but I'm sure he'll choose that eventually. But yeah, he got the sub ending, the best ending to get first.
Yes, that's what we want. Yeah, safe ending, I don't even know how I'd feel about that one first, because then it's just kind of, I feel like it's a little too early.
It's too early,
I guess
yeah.
Yeah, because I would not want to, because you're on the path to like getting the true ending, so it's like, I feel like if I am playing these mystery games, especially like the ones with like the multiple routes or anything like with the Zero Escape or Insomnium Files, I love it when I get like the worst ending possible first. That's great. That feels amazing. I think it was the same when I played the first Insomnium Files game. Like I had the Annihilation.
You got the Annihilation route, right?
Yeah, and I was like, ooh, this has got to be the worst ending, right? And I while I was playing the other routes, I was like, surely it can't get worse than the Annihilation. Like, there's no way. And obviously, you can't like fully complete the route in that game, but we'll talk about that perhaps in a different video.
Maybe. I don't remember what I got first ending on AI Somnium Files, but I do know it was not the Annihilation route, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's just similarly to Zero Escape. I think like any ending is probably fine to get first. I guess safe ending would probably be one of the weaker ones. Yeah. One of the main bad endings, at least.
For sure. And yeah, I mean, after you get all the bad endings, it just feels really good to get to the safe ending, the safe ending.
Yeah, it's a lot more rewarding. It's like, oh, we finally got here, and now we learn what happened in all these situations. Because I feel like if you get safe ending first, you just kind of know what happened in all the other endings.
Right.
And they don't hit. I feel like it kind of takes away that mystery because you're just like, oh, it was Ace. Okay.
Yeah. And like, the moment where
for him,
Junpei like confronts Ace is really, really cool. But without like all the previous endings, it just doesn't feel as impactful.
Right, because you don't know you know what he's done, but you also know the potential of what he can do as well.
Yep.
Like how he could kill literally everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, safe ending is definitely like one of the ending I would not want first.
Definitely, for sure. But yeah, once you get to the safe ending is really, really good. Like, obviously. Like,
oh, it is, yeah.
We can get even before it, like, Santa reveals his sister. We learn that Ace is the CEO of Cradle Pharmaceuticals, which if you've done the sub-ending, you'll know that is bad news. And most likely has prosopagnosia. And all the pieces are starting to get together. And then, boom, Clover's missing. What's up with that? We all search, and then Clover's dead, and then and then just things go from there.
Yeah, no, it was definitely one of the greatest reveals of the story for me. Because again, like I said, I had really liked Ace up till that point.
Right.
And like throughout all the other endings that I got, I didn't know it was him until I started getting closer and creeping up on that safe ending, and I'm like, oh. It's him. Yeah. It's gotta be him.
I love how it's like
it's
slow,
really satisfying.
Yeah, I love how it's like a slow realization that oh no.
Yeah. No, I love that kind of stuff where you just slowly start putting the clues together. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and again, we talked about this before, but like the moment where Junpei confronts and traps Ace is just so good. It's such a good character moment for Junpei. And then like Ace has his like quote unquote villain transformation moment that is typical of these sort of games.
Yeah, the Ace Attorney, like, I've been cornered. Better turn on my bad guy persona.
I will say,
like he flips back his hair and he has like the bags under his eye and he's like,
Yeah.
I did it. Yeah, I killed Clover. That was me. Yep. No, put it on. I mean, you got me, bro.
I will say, I do like how it's a lot more understated than an Ace Attorney can be. He basically just like flips his hair back and stares menacingly, which
Right.
and he and like I like it when it's not like a complete 180 of their like previous personality, or like, oh, now they're just crazy now, or anything like that. It's still like, it's obviously still Ace, but now you understand he is a menacing character.
Right. It's like he doesn't have to hide anything anymore. Like in the past, he was trying to like play it innocent and whatnot, but he still had like similar characteristics. But now he's just like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care. Like
Right.
he just lost the ability to care. He's done with everybody. Like he's like, you're gonna follow my orders now. I'm still in charge. It's just he still has the power, right? He had the power before, and he still has the power now because of the gun. And how he's like, well, I already killed somebody. You know what I'm capable of, so come at me. I have
Right.
the gun. Like.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is good, because like he had it before, and it's just like, well, he still has control over the situation. Like you may have revealed that it was him, but it doesn't matter, because now he has Lotus, he has the gun, he has the bracelets,
Yes.
he can get out the number 9 door.
Yeah.
So
And like the characters have to like let him out, because like there's no other alternative. Like they let him go, and then it's only like a bit afterwards that Seven and Junpei like go after them to the 9
Right.
doors. And yeah, it just shows that, even though we figured things out, there's still a lot more that needs to be done, and Ace still has like the power in this game, and we need to be careful of that. We need to deal with that somehow.
right.
Yeah. Which, eventually they do. They go to the chapel, and hey, Snake's alive. That's cool.
Oh, you don't want to talk about the coffin ending?
I do not want to talk about the coffin ending. That was actually my first ending. Actually.
No, are you serious?
It is my first ending, yes.
Oh no, that's the lamest ending. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
What a crazy ending.
I mean, I will admit, it made me like super hooked on the story. It was like, oh shoot, okay, we just need to figure how to get the coffin open, and then everything will be good. And then, yeah,
Right.
I literally played
I
every
think
other ending
it's
until then.
Yeah, it's like it's fine, it exists, but it's like, man, getting that as your first, that's gotta.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, at least knowing, I say that now as a player who's played the game, obviously, but I can't help, like, if somebody were to tell me they got the coffin ending first, I'd just be like, oh, you poor soul.
Yeah. Yeah. The coffin ending is surprisingly easy to get, despite like it having to have like very specific conditions.
Right. I mean, I think you can just kind of get lucky and get to it by accident.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, it's pretty natural. Like, you go through Duel 4 to stay with June. Of course you take the Clover. Like, why wouldn't you? And of course you give the Clover to Clover to help cheer her up. Of course, like, when you can't like be with June, like, you're a bit concerned about Clover, so you go with her. And then, yeah, it's just like, it's actually surprisingly easy to get, which is interesting. I don't think that was intended.
Right. Yeah, I think it's definitely the I'm playing it safe kind of route, where you don't like, it's like you don't take any risks. Like, you don't take door number 5 in the start. You don't take door number 3.
Right.
So it feels like you're playing very safely in that regard. It's very reserved, and so I can definitely see it. And you definitely like complete all like the checks that are necessary to get there.
Right.
So I can see it. I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, Snake's alive, even though we don't know it in the coffin ending. But, eventually we do get him out. And like, he reveals his superpower of ignoring the doors. And, oh my goodness, I think we mentioned it a bunch of times, but like, that moment in the incinerator with Snake is just really, really powerful.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Because, like, Ace has the gun. And he shot him like what, like 5-6 times?
So he initially
he
shoots
kept
him
going.
once. Yeah, and then we were thinking, oh no, Snake's dead. But then he rises, quote unquote, rises from the dead with his sheer determination. And then Ace starts to freak out. Like, he shoots him again, Snake goes down, but still gets back up, and literally unloads the gun onto Snake in desperation. But it's just a super powerful moment because you can see the determination for Snake to bring justice to his sister. Like, that determination is really, really moving. It's just super, super powerful, that scene.
Right. I'd agree. That's one of the things that I think just makes Snake's character really effective, is just that he never really had that sort of moment to open up, really, but this was his moment, right? This was his moment here, and how it connects to the other Nunnery game from 9 years ago. I think it's just like that's why they kept him out of the mid game, was because they needed like these scenes at the ending. They needed Ace to have his way to hide for a little while longer. Because Snake was a little OP. He was a little OP. So they needed to all right, well, let's keep you for the ending. We got to find a way to keep you at the ending, because you have like way too many like secrets.
Yeah.
You got like he has the knowledge of the thing from the start of the game. He can take off his arm and ignore the bracelet. He has knowledge of the past Nonary game. So many things. And obviously, like, he has the trust of mostly everybody. Well, except like in the mid game, because they're like, oh, it's probably him because he could be watching us. But
yeah.
There's like very rarely a moment where like Snake is the one that people would be distrusting.
Right. I forgot there was like that moment in the safe ending where Junpei was like, wait, Snake is alive. Could he have done it? Sort of.
Right.
Ideal. Is he Zero? I will say I do love it when like Ace was super, super confident in the incinerator and then eventually starts begging, like, hey, I have a hospital, we can cure you up, like, please let me go.
Oh yeah, it just that was so good, because again, it's just like, man, he's willing to do anything. He's willing to stoop like to any level as long as he gets out.
Yeah,
it's just it just makes you hate him even more. Like, he's pathetic.
Yeah, like, I guess there's no better word for that. And yeah, like, afterwards, when he gets his justice certs in the incinerator, obviously, unfortunately, Snake died, which is really, really sad. But then, like, June starts to die, apparently, and in the chapel. And this is when, like, things really get off the rails, because, like, we have a scene similar to what happened in the sub ending, but June essentially just like winks away, and Zero is on the intercom saying that Zero's the one that lost. And I think that segues perfectly well to the true ending. Like, you had that super emotional moment, but you still have a lot of questions about the game itself that you still need to get through.
Right. It's definitely the perfect transition into the final ending. I would agree.
Yeah. Definitely. So now we're in the end game. And yeah, the end game, the true ending. I don't even know how to start with this, because there's so much to say about the true ending.
There's a lot. There's definitely a lot. I guess we can just start with the setting first. With the incinerator. That was, I guess, like, because we were talking earlier about like Akane's fever, and just how in the past, when she doesn't complete her task, she fails and is burned alive. And that is like revealed, or it's like foreshadowed that in all the other endings, when Akane starts getting a fever, whenever things aren't going the way they're supposed to be going, it's kind of like hey, she has this fever because herself in the past is heating up from the incinerator, and it's leading to you not making it there to help her. Right. And it's just, that is one of the best pieces of like foreshadowing I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Especially because you just don't really think about it.
Right.
and then like it just makes so much more sense after you like get to this point. And the incinerator is just, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
I think just the aspect of being locked in, because you think like the main way that you're gonna die in this game is you're either gonna be murdered, or the ship is gonna sink and you're not gonna make it in time, or you blow up from the bomb. But now you have like the threat of the incinerator now too, and it's just like, dang, so many different things. And
right.
all the while you're having all these memories from the past flooding in as well, from 9 years ago, and what characters are connected with it, like Clover, Snake, Seven, June, Santa. Like it's crazy how it all unravels, and like Ace's entire mastermind. You get to just see like how he hasn't changed one bit, how he's still the same evil guy since back then.
Right.
Oh
like,
man.
Yeah, like I love how everything just like starts to tie things up, or I guess that's the phrase, like starts to illuminate themselves. Like we've heard inchlings or like little bits of what happened 9 years ago from things like Seven and whatnot, but I think it's actually in Door 1 where there's like the first confirmation where like a similar an experiment happened 9 years ago, only further to confirm. No, it wasn't Door 1. It was it Door 7? I think it was Door 7.
I honestly I don't remember the door, unfortunately.
It was the one with the mannequins. But after that, it was Door 1 where we get full confirmation that the Nonary game was played 9 years ago, and there were two groups, the Building Q and the Gigantic. And all the morphogenetic stuff starts getting into play. And like even before like we get to the incinerator, like we have to go to like the library and the workshop first, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Right. And you get even more lore bombs. Like Snake tells all during that. Like you get like I think a 10-minute lore bomb, but it's super satisfying because you're finally getting answers to questions you've been thinking about for a while.
Right.
And yeah, you also get the lore bomb that the girl who died was Akane, which was like, what? Huh? Who's June?
Yeah, at the time, I remember being so confused because I knew like what the game was like leading up to and like how the morphogenetic field was gonna like impact it. But like when I found out that Akane died, I was like, but then how is she? But then what? But like I'm just like, what? It's because it's just like the paradox of like she's both alive and dead, like the Schrodinger's cat kind of thing, and it's just like. Oh man.
Yeah.
Just that initial hit of like now you know what happened and now you know what needs to be done to save her. It falls into place.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
I remember I was playing this the end game, and it was like I think like midnight or something when I was playing this.
Oh, that's the best time to play these games at midnight. Oh, that's the best time.
And I remember going into the library, I was like, okay, I think I see what's going on, right? It's like Snake, like, threatened June to get through the doors. Like, Santa probably is getting revenge for his sister, who definitely died, was the girl that died. So it's all making sense now. Let's go. And then I reached that moment where Snake was like, Akane was the girl who died. And I was like, what? And I remember, since it was like in the middle of the night, like, me getting like really, really huge goosebumps and like a shiver going through myself. Like that's how much that like impacted me at the time. It was just because again, I thought I figured everything out, but boom, there's still more. And it's like, oh my goodness, everything's all of a sudden so unsettling again because I don't have everything. It's just like, what is going on? And there's always a twist at the end, right? Like just when you think you figured things out, there's always something new that somehow works with everything that has been stated previously. And yeah.
Right. And it's just like how all that like foreshadowing and build up is there throughout the entire game, but it's just not enough to like give it to you straight out. And that's what's just so good about this game, because it just tells you everything, especially with like the bad things and the foreshadowing and the morphogenetic fields, everything. It's all there, and it just it flows together so nicely with just like all the information that you have from all the other endings, which is why I think the multiple endings again work so well, because it's not just a game with one route. You have to experience all these other things, which in turn, because of those other endings, you have the information from the alternate worlds, and that plays into the true ending. It's like, so those happened but in another world, but you have the information from them, and you can use that information to help save Akane. And that in itself is the entire point of the game. It's like no other game does that. No other game would have done that. Just this, like that in and of itself, how the entire game is like, the entire game is quote unquote one route, but it's not at the same time. That blew my mind the first time I played the game. Because like you play other games with other endings and you're like, okay, well I got this ending, let's go see what this ending's all about, let's get the good ending now. And you think the good ending is going to be completely separate from the bad ending, but nope, the good ending here requires you to do all the bad endings, so you have all this knowledge of what happens, and those events canonically happened in those other worlds, and you use that to your advantage. Just oh my gosh, that initial hit was just like, what? That's crazy.
It is so good. Like I remember like still like when we got to the he knew because I knew section of the reviews, like I was actually blown away, because like again at the time, even though like we had that lore bomb with Akane, I was like, okay, Santa's still zero. He's getting revenge for his sister. I have no idea what's going on with June, probably an imposter, whatever. But then like Santa says he isn't zero and that it's to save his sister, and then everything starts to fall together. He knew because I knew. It isn't initially stated in the narration, in the first narration, but like that slow and steady reveal that young Akane from 9 years ago, it was the narrator and has been observing all these current to her future timelines in order to get the answer to the puzzle, in order to save herself. And now she has to recreate the history in order to not cause a paradox and secure her own existence. Like, Akane was the narrator. She's on the bottom screen. The top screen is Junpei at the current time. Like, that is so cool and works so well, effectively, in order to convey that twist. And it's really compelling. Like,
it's insane using the dual screen for your like as another way of effective storytelling. Rest in peace, DS. But like,
rest in peace, DS.
The way they took advantage of that, it's just like I wish I just knew what they're thinking at the time. Like that is insane. Like, because I imagine you play these on like ports and it's the same. It's all the same screen, so you don't notice the difference as hard. Like you see like the little transition, I think. Yeah. Because I've seen like scenes of it, but you don't get like the top screen goes down to the bottom screen. It's just like you don't get to differentiate the two as easily.
Unfortunately, the PC version, which is now what most of the YouTubers and streamers play, unfortunately, I don't think is as effective with that as opposed to like the DS, because for one thing, obviously the narration's on the bottom, spoken things are on the top, and initially you think, oh, that's just like, like a formatting thing, a layout thing. But no, it's actually.
You just think it's like Junpei. A lot of the times, like, it's just internal monologues. Yeah.
But it works with the reveal really, really well, and specifically when they start switching back and forth between the current and the past, where like Junpei and young Akane start talking to each other on the dual screens. Like, it really sells this point that even though they're on different, eras of time, like the past and the current, like they're still connected. You see both of them on the screen, and you see them talking to each other, connecting with each other through the morphogenetic field set. And when they're connected across the screens like that, it's super effective. And that is something that, unfortunately, the PC version doesn't do as well, because they have to, like, they only have one screen. So they switch scenes, essentially, between the current and the past. And it doesn't really sell that as well, I think.
Right. I can't... It's just imagining... it's the first playthrough when you do it, dude. The first time that happens, it's just... Oh man, I think I might have also done this like really, really late at night as well. Because I remember I always like playing these games like at the nighttime. But like that, it's such a good time. Like I don't know what it is, but like whenever you get to these points in the games, I feel like you always remember where you were at. Mm-hmm. One of the craziest things, at least this isn't for mystery games, but I know whenever I defeat a Zelda final boss, I always knew where I was. I don't know what it is. It's like I always remember beating a Zelda final boss. I remember where I was at the time. And I guess at this, it was just like the same thing. I just remember like being cooped up in my bed, just like glued to the screen, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, like it's so good. And like the morphogenetic field set has already been established and works really well. The only thing that I guess was different is that it also did across time as well, but that's just like a logical extension if you know a bit about modern science with space-time and things like that. And yeah, like eventually at the end, you finally get the confirmation that June is Akane Kurashiki. She recreated the history she had a glimpse of 9 years ago just to save herself. And I know we talked about this in the Mastermind video, but I'll say this again. I think of the games I've played so far, Akane is my favorite Mastermind.
Right. There's no one else of a Mastermind that just has such a personal stake and a personal connection to the player, to the characters that Akane had.
Right.
And how it came from a desire that I wouldn't even say is like just selfish. It's just everybody wants to live, so of course you're going to go that far. And while you're at it, make people pay for the things that they have done. In the case
just
of
as a
stuff
side
like
thing,
Ace. Yeah, it's just like, and the blood wasn't even on her hands. It was on Ace's. I'm just saying, like that was Ace. I mean, she knew it was gonna happen though, so she read him like a book. But it's just like having, oh gosh, I can't even explain it. It's so genius that I can't even explain it well. Like I'd have to just like sit down and actually just like write down all of my thoughts about Akane, like how good of a mastermind that she is. It's just because it's the way she's introduced. You just think that she's just the girl love interest character who's pretty funny, silly, and you really want to see her get to the ending. And then you see this, and it's like, oh. Okay, so that's why we're in this situation. It's because of her, but you don't hate her for it. Right. A lot of Masterminds and other games, the whole point is they're the villain. Like Ace takes the place of that role in this game, where it's just like, oh, you hate this guy because of what he did now and what he did 9 years ago. So he's awful. You hate his guts, and so he takes that more evil role. But Akane just takes the role of the antagonist or anti-hero or a lot of other things that she can fill so many different roles at once.
Yeah, like, I mean, she has a lot of different interpretations of her actions and characters. Like, how much of it was an act? How much of it was real? How much does she actually cares about Junpei? I think when it comes to like her being a mastermind, I think they did Uchikoshi did a really good thing in that he separated the quote-unquote villain, that being Ace, from the mastermind. And so the villain is still someone that, you know, his motivations is we don't really buy, let's be real, and is someone that is hated. But the mastermind is someone that is super, super compelling and is fascinating to discuss and interpret and think about. And I think that's a really, really good separation to have, because you still have like a villainous character that might not be as compelling, and a mastermind that is super, super compelling. And I mean, the formula, I guess, is it a formula? I don't think it's a formula, actually, now that I think about it, of the games I played. That strategy actually works really well from a meta standpoint. because it allows the Mastermind to have a lot more depth while still having a threat, essentially.
Right, because I guess like for a lot of other games, like the Mastermind, especially if it's the sort of the Mastermind is among us kind of situation, you don't really get to see the Mastermind until usually like the end of the game. And even then they don't have that much time to leave an impact. Like sure, they can leave quite a major impact, but they're not around for that long. But for Akane specifically, she's around for the whole game, and every scene with her can be interpreted in so many different ways. Like you were saying earlier, what her true feelings are. And that works just so effectively compared to so many other Masterminds. And I really don't think there's any other final villain Mastermind I've seen in these types of games that works as effectively as Akane.
Right. And I think it's also interesting to note that in 999, we don't see her at all once she is like revealed as the Mastermind. We see her past self. We don't see her current self. Once Santa says like he isn't Zero, and you're like, okay, it has to be June then. She is gone. She quote unquote winked out of existence. And so like you never actually see her current self from then on, which just makes her ambiguous nature a lot more ambiguous, and again leads to a lot of these different interpretations. And I think that's really, really good, because I like it when like there's different ways you can look at it, and there's different ways of interpreting her character, like what her true nature is. Like I think that it makes her a lot more fascinating. And obviously in Virtue's Last War and Zero Escape and whatnot, like things happen. But like like in the game itself, like you don't really know a lot after the reveal. You don't see her at all. Yeah.
The most you can do is follow the tracks that was left by like assumed to be June and Santa, and you just kind of are like, okay, well maybe we'll see them again, but like the ending never really shows you that. I mean, obviously, again, there are more games in the series, but at least in terms of 999, it just kind of ends there. So you fulfill the mission of saving Akane, but then you don't really get to see what her for what she really is after everything that was revealed. And that was a bit, I think at first when I first played the game, I actually didn't like that, because I really wanted to see her. Like I was like, okay, we finally saved her, I want to see her, but then you don't really get to, and it's like, dang, that feels kind of underwhelming. I thought there'd be like a post-credit scene, but there wasn't. And I was like, really, that's it? But you know, as the years went by, I appreciated that more.
Yeah, I get that, right? Like you want the reunion, you want either a confrontation or them kissing or something, holding hands or something. But yeah, you don't get that. And I understand like it can feel unsatisfying, but I just like the ambiguous nature of it. And yeah, I mean, again, we talked about Akane a bunch in the Mastermind video, but I guess I'll restate it here. Like I think Akane, for me, has like every checkbox filled to make her super compelling to me. Like she has a very good emotional connection to the story. Obviously, we talked about that before, but also thematically, she represents a lot of the themes of 999 as a story. Like she represents the morphogenetic field, her being a very powerful user of that. She represents how, you know, you shouldn't judge someone based off of your first impressions. And this works both ways, both herself as a character, from girl next door vibes to Mastermind, but also to Zero, because normally you think Zero as a Mastermind would have like a very evil intention, but it's actually very sympathetic. And it also represents like the connections and bonds between Junpei and Akane that allows them to communicate, as opposed to like Snake, who has like no connection, no love, no sympathy, and ultimately fails and loses, both 9 years ago and now. And I think that makes a Mastermind super compelling.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's just there's no other Masterminds or villains that really effectively do that, at least in the mystery genre. There's been a few others that I can feel where it's just like their intentions are sympathetic or something that you really want to see happen, I would suggest Persona 5 Royal. There's a character in that game. That's a great example of something like this. But obviously that's in a completely different genre. But it's very rare that you come across these characters that like just stick with you, even though they're in a more, at the ending, like you realize they're in a more antagonistic role. But it's the reasons behind why they're doing what they're doing, and that is what makes it so much more interesting.
As we mentioned in a previous installment, I think, it is the why that sticks.
Yes.
And Akane has one of the best whys I've ever seen in a mystery game.
100%. Especially since the whys can be interpreted in a lot of different ways too. Like there's the face value ones, and then there's just like all the underlying text behind all of her dialogue throughout the entire game.
Yep.
And that's what I love so much about her character, and why she's just easily like the best character from 999. I mean, not there's much competition. There's not too many characters, but like the other ones. Obviously,
I mean, it is hard competition because like all the characters are really, really good, right? But like, nothing beats Akane for sure.
100%.
Yeah, and I mentioned this previously, but I think like the themes work really well when it comes to 999 and Akane and everything really, because ultimately, and I'm curious to hear what your opinion is, but in my personal opinion, like in terms of the themes of 999, I think it's about like connection and empathy. I can explain why I think that after, but like what are your thoughts on the themes of 999?
That's a good question. You know, now that you mention that, I don't think I've ever really thought about it that much, but I can see what you mean by the connection. Obviously, just between, especially like it's right there, face value with Junpei and Akane.
Right. Yeah, they get their happy ending because of their connection, but not just between Akane and Junpei, obviously, but also through the other characters. We see the bond between Snake and Clover. We see the bond between Santa and his sister. That is eventually revealed to be Akane. We see the bond between Seven and Lotus start to grow through their tsundere moments. And Lotus and her kids. Everyone besides Ace has people that they love or they empathize with. And it's because of that the first Nonary game, we see the trauma and the effects linger, how it disrupted that. Ace not having any emotional connections or sympathy does terrible things and disrupted countless lives. Whereas like when you see the characters like Akane, Snake, Clover, they're able to eventually get closure, eventually save themselves because of their connections. It's very, very basic, but in the context of 999, I do think it's actually very effective in terms of like a theme.
Yeah, no, I actually like how you're putting this. That I haven't thought too much about just like strictly the theme, but no, I think you said it in like a much better way than I could ever describe it. Just the connections and how, even though you mentioned it's like a little bit basic, but 999 like does it in one of the most effective ways that I've just ever seen. And like Ace is just like the perfect example of the opposite of the game's theme of how like what distrusting people your entire life can do, what backstabbing people your entire life does. It leads to you being alone, and the ending that you get is just not going to be good because nobody's going to like you, nobody's going to want to support you.
Yeah, and like this also ties into the morphogenetic field as well, because like the morphogenetic field is obviously how Akane and Junpei were able to communicate, but it represents that connection on a pseudoscientific level, I guess. It's the medium where like everyone is connected and are impacted by each other. Like we had that spiel of Snake saying, you know, if 1 million people did handstands, your chances of doing a handstand will slightly go up, which is definitely pseudoscientific, but it's just like, you know, emphasizing how we all impact each other. We are all connected with each other. And sometimes that is very explicit in how like Ace did something that caused because he has like no love, no connection, caused like a bunch of damage to a bunch of people, and like how they're eventually all connected in the end and able to escape. And like it thematically, again, it works really well, and it makes Akane being the ultimate, quote unquote ultimate morber. I hate Joseph Anderson for introducing that term, but I love it as well. The morbing field. It makes her thematically connect as a mastermind as well. It works really, really well.
Right. I think it's just, I guess if you really wanted to boil it down to like the simplest of things, you could just say it's the power of friendship, but just like on that pseudo-scientific level. Basically, yeah. And it's literally just that, but it's just, it does it in a way that like no other game really does, even if it is like fundamentally similar. Yeah, it comes like across in a way that's just like way different. Yeah, and like obviously we can be like super reductive about any theme in any story, but like I do think the way it is told in 999 is really, really good, and yeah, it all comes together really, really well. Definitely. Such a good game. It is. We've talked so much about what is good about it. What are aspects of 999, DS or PC, do you think can be improved, do you think? Oh, that's a good question. I think... Okay, maybe it's just me, but I think a bit of variety with the endings could have helped a little. Yeah, because I think there's ways where you can get like the same ending multiple times. Right. Yeah. And I think I remember like getting the same ending twice. Like the second time I got an ending, I just kind of remember feeling annoyed because I was just like, oh, I was expecting something different to happen. So you're like scrolling through it, and you're like, oh, it's the same thing. It's the same ending. And then it's just like, okay, so how many endings are the same? And it kind of, I feel like it's a bit of a chore at that point. Right. But again, like I don't think I'm not sure how I would fix that, because again, like you need to get all the endings to reach the game, so I don't know. The way you fix that is the flowchart that was introduced in the PC version, which greatly reduces the chances of getting repeat endings. And also like you don't have to go through all the puzzles again. You don't have to solve the puzzles again. You can just like go through whenever there's like a story change, and you can just see what happens. Yeah, you have like the auto advance button or something. Yeah. Okay. And so like for the DS version specifically, I will admit it was not fun having to redo all the puzzles as I try to get through all the routes. Yeah. So I do think like a flowchart from the PC version would be good. And I guess like story-wise, there were aspects that were a bit like, I guess, quote-unquote forced, like the ninth man playing the pronoun game, not like directly saying who lied to him. Junpei. Oh yeah. Because again, he could have easily said the number one guy, and then it just would have been no mystery. Right. But, and yeah, and also Junpei being very blaze about in the captain's quarter about Snake's dead body to Clover, which eventually leads to Clover figuring out that Snake is alive. That was a bit blaze to me, but those two are basically the main ones, and honestly, it's not really that big of a deal to me since it can't easily be explained by them being in a super stressful situation, especially the ninth man. But because he's about to die. Because it again, there would be no plot without it. But yeah, it's more like I guess in the moment I wasn't really thinking, because I feel like I think probably when I first played the game, I was thinking, oh, he just means zero. He meant zero, right. Put him in there or something like that. That's probably what you're thinking. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I guess it does kind of. It's kind of like okay. He could have just said the number one guy, and then everybody would have been looking at him like, oh, yeah. Or like even they could have. I guess they could have said his name, and then they wouldn't have known because they were using code names at that time. Yeah. Although I think Snake. Would Clover know Hongo's name? I actually don't know. I think? Because, like, Clover wasn't...
was in the Nevada building, and Hongo
Yeah.
was in. Huh. Okay, maybe she would.
She
Maybe
might
it would
have.
actually worked out.
I mean, at least, yeah, maybe. I mean, at least Snake would have, but obviously Ace already had plans for Snake.
Yeah,
so.
and Snake, I think, knew already to begin with as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But like again, it's understandable, and again, we probably wouldn't have a story otherwise, and it can be easily explained by them being in a super stressful situation. Yeah. I will say I have a lot more complaints about the PC version because I don't like it as much as the DS version. I mentioned how I don't like how they handled the multiple screens. The way they do it, it makes it so like, in order for people playing on adventure mode, which is just like them talking, no narration, they had to move a lot of details in the narration to be spoken, and that just makes things really awkward oftentimes, and I think weakens the story. Obviously,
Really? I didn't even know there was a mode like that.
yeah, there's so how they did it in the PC version is that there's basically two screens that you can choose, and you can freely switch between them by pressing a button. So there's adventure mode and novel mode. And adventure mode, it's just the spoken things that are being spoken, like in universe. Narration mode
I see.
includes the spoken thing, but also the narration that you would get on the bottom screen. The problem with that is that because people can just play on adventure mode, you might miss some details that are important to the story that is only in the narration. So they moved some of that narration to be spoken. And
I
yeah.
don't know how I feel about that.
And some of it makes it really awkward. Like, I remember when Snake's quote-unquote body was first revealed, like, they had to speak. You could see the bone sticking out or something like that. And that just makes it, like, really awkward and obvious, yeah. So, yeah. It weakens the story. Obviously, the reveal we mentioned is weakened as well. And also, something that I can't believe they missed. They are missing a cutscene lock in one of the places, meaning that you can completely skip over Santa monologuing about being a Santa Claus to his sister and her death, which, you know, is really important to the later sections where you get to the safe ending. And so,
is this also in the PC version?
It's in the PC version. Yes, it's in the PC version.
Oh my gosh! We just need like a master version or something. What is this?
Yeah. So yeah, those are the reasons why I don't like the PC version. Obviously, there are quality of life aspects that I really like. Like, I actually think the voice acting is really good, and the flowchart, besides the missing story lock, is super super nice. But yeah, like, unfortunately, like the PC version I think is not as good as the DS version. Which is why I recommend the DS version, honestly.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, I guess that's what you have here. Which version to recommend to the newcomer? I mean, obviously, it's probably, if you're just wanting to play 999, probably don't buy a DS because you have to buy a console for it. But yeah, I mean, I guess you would just go for PC at that point.
Yeah. It is definitely the most accessible version. And again, the quality of life version, especially the quality of life aspects, especially with the flowchart, is so nice. Like, it's so nice. But if you want to get like the best story experience and are willing to sacrifice a bit of re-puzzle solving, the DS version is the definitive way to experience the story, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because again, like, it works so well with the ending, and Uchikoshi definitely designed it in mind with the DS to utilize that dual screen.
Yeah. There's not many games I think that have used it as effectively as 999.
Yeah. For sure.
At least from a narrative point of view.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, 999 is a good game, actually. I think.
And I think if you somehow haven't played it, despite watching this entire video, go play it. I know we kind of just revealed like literally everything, but like, even if it just convinces somebody to maybe replay it, go back to it, or like maybe revisit some old scenes or anything. Like that would
or
be good too.
maybe you've played the PC version and now want to experience the DS version. Like, definitely do that. I think it's really, really cool. And yeah, we've been talking for 2 hours now.
I thought we were only gonna go for 1 hour, but man, this is what this game does, dude. We could just rant about it forever, I swear.
Yeah. Oh boy, we're gonna see if like future games will reach this level. But yeah, again, I think you can tell we both love 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Stores, and it was really, really fun to finally be able to talk about it in depth. And so, yeah, thank you, Zeus, for joining me. Always a blast having you on.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, it's so fun to talk about these things. Again, not many other people to talk about them with, so, I'll take my chances where I can get them.
Yeah. Oh boy, I can't wait until you play Ace Attorney Investigations 2 in September, and we can talk about that. That'll be super fun.
Yes, sir.
So look out, I guess, in the future, not next episode probably, but like sometime in the future for that. Look out in the future for future episodes. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Let us know down in the comments, if we're here still, what your thoughts are on 999, what are your favorite moments of it, etc., etc. Do let us know. I would love to read it. And don't worry about spoilers. We should be fine with spoilers. I mean, we played it, so it's fine.
Yeah, I think with the spoiler warning at the start, we should be good.
Spoiler warning at the start to help people not get spoiled if they're just tuning in before they tune out from the spoiler warning. But yeah, thank you so much. Hope you all have an amazing rest of the day, and see you all next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.